August 28th, 2024. This is the Arlington County Board of Equalization hearings. There are 3 cases on the agenda and 7 members present for a quorum. We'll start with the first item on the agenda. It's RPC 350110009, 590 15th Street South. Mr. Price, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Yes, ma'am. So about this property here, I actually would like to withdraw this appeal if possible at this time.
I'm sorry?
He's withdrawn.
Yes, I would like to withdraw this appeal.
Okay, is there any objection from the county? I assume not.
No, ma'am.
Right, then I will move to accept the withdrawal. Do I have a second? Mr. Hoffman, all in favor? Aye, opposed. Okay, it is withdrawn. Thank you. Okay,
We did that the last 2 years.
Yeah, me too.
okay, so we have Mr. Price and Netta. There you go. All right, next case on the agenda is RCC 1601803A. 1500 East Park. Mr. Price, you can start with your 8 minutes on this property.
Right. All right. Good morning, everyone. This property here is 1800 Oak Apartments. This is a 314 unit high-rise, mid-rise apartment building in Roslyn submarket. The crux of this case comes down to a few things here. First thing I will point out is the gross potential rent. We have used a 3-year average to illustrate a stabilized performance of the property. And during this analysis, the 3-year average for the property, the 3-year average for the gross potential rental income is $9.2 million, or about $2,459 per unit. We have also included the parking income and also other income that is reported from the I&E. Moving on to the vacancy, we have used the county guidelines of 6% for the vacancy. And then moving on to the expenses, the Arlington guidelines for high-rise apartment buildings that are built in 2003 is $9,448 a unit. The county is currently utilizing $8,106 per unit, or just about $2.5 million. And I want to bring to the board's attention that the actual 2023 expenses for the property were $13,362 per unit, with a 3-year average of $12,373 a unit. So even though we are using the county guidelines, we're severely under what the actual expenses incurred at the property were for calendar year 2023. And then also for this property, we believe a cap rate adjustment is warranted. We have pulled data not only from surrounding jurisdictions, but also several publications that show that as interest rates have continued to increase in calendar year 2023, and also the beginning of 2024, that a cap rate adjustment is warranted for this property. Moving on to the commercial space, which is currently, which at evaluation date was currently 71% vacant. We have used the 2024 Arlington County guidelines of 7% for the vacancy rate, also 16% for the expense rate. But because of the excess in vacancy at the property, we have took a below the line deduction or a discount for lease up. And that's all there in my package on page 5, and also with my analysis on page 6 there. So with everything that's aforementioned, I believe that our estimate of value is more than appropriate. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shuttlesworth for the county, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I just wanted to make a note. Originally, upon the review, which we conducted on July 31st this year, we recommended only minimal reduction of $39,500, and that was due to the corrections made to the cap rates. Again, due to RIA's limited rounding capabilities, the cap rates were adjusted to reflect Roslyn bid rates, and our revised proposed assessment then was $131,396,900. However, on August 16, the agent, Ms. Ross, advised me that the property owner does not collect the rent from one of the tenants, which was Gallery Market. The lease is set to expire in September 2029. However, no rents are being collected from this tenant. And just like Mr. Pierce stated, the retail space is experiencing over 70% vacancy as of January 1, 2024. And due to this new information, we took a second look at the case, and we reduced the retail rent from $134,225 to $61,360. And our new proposed total 2024 assessment is now $130,967,600. The issue the appellants are bringing up is the OPEX and the cap rates and potential rate. Rental rate. The issues we would like to talk about are, so the property potential rent for the apartment has been increasing by over 7% in the past 2 years, yet the appellants are projecting over 7% decrease in the pro forma. They're also including over $1 million worth of capital expenses. This has been happening year over year, 2022. Mr. Pierce also presented another case of his last week where we had similar scenario. And lastly, due to the recent findings, we had to address the excess vacancy for the retail portion. And the 2022 and 2023 INE surveys had to be, all the INEs since 2022 were reconstructed because the appellants were including those capital expenses. So for the 2023, we excluded $1,352,000, $1,352,920. And these were for renovations, capital costs, construction work, and casualty loss. And for 2022, we had over $1,700,000 excluded, again for replacement, again for unit cost, capital improvements, and again for casualty losses. In 2021, we excluded also over $1 million for replacement expenses, unit costs, capital improvements, and casualty losses. And similar situation for 2022, where we excluded $1,080,000. So based on the past 2 years of financial information provided, the property has been experiencing increases in the apartment rent and net operating income. And in our 2024 analysis, we underestimated the apartment income by over $600,000. And we also underestimated the OPEX by over $200,000, close to $300,000 actually. And due to 70% physical retail vacancy, we reduced potential rent from $35 per square foot to $16 per square foot. The retail lease for Gallery Market, again, is not set to expire until September 2029, but they vacated the property at the end of 2022. This is what Ms. Ross advised me just a couple of days ago. I have not received the 2023 retail rent roll. However, I did have the 2022 rent roll on file. And the Hair Gallery, the only tenant in place right now, paid over, well, close to $55,000 for their space in 2022. They occupying 1,118 square feet. And while addressing the cap rate issue brought up by the appellants, I am going to make the same statement as I have been in our prior cases. The cap rates in our commercial guidelines are expressed in ranges, not as a single number, and they vary by the property type, by proximity to the closest metro station, and by the... with that being said, I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, just to clarify, Ms. Shuttlesworth, so you said in changing the retail rent from the 134,225, which I'm following you, to 61,360.
Yes.
New revised number is 130,967,600.
Yeah, so my total revised number for the total for both components, apartments and retail, is $130,987,500.
Oh, okay, all right, I thought she said 67.
Me too.
Right.
Me too.
Okay, so it's not, so it's what you have on here, 139,87, 500.
Yes, the first, when I originally conducted the review in July, and I didn't know they were not collecting the retail rent from Gallery Place Market. And we only revised the assessment by nominal $39,500 initially in July. But then in August, upon new information received from Ms. Ross, we
Okay.
reduced it by more.
I got it. I just was trying to clarify the number that you stated. Okay, other
Yes.
questions, board members? Mr. Mattson.
For the appellant, a quick question and a comment. You had said that you took a 3-year average of the GPI and came out with a number. I just wrote down 9.2 million, but I see in the appellant pro forma column G, a number close to 9.226 million. But it's for rent only, not the GPI. It's the only 9.2 million I can find. Did you misstate? And is that what you meant? Just rents are the 3-year average of 9.226?
Yes, yes, sir. I believe if I misspoke, yes, sir. That 9.2 million number is the gross potential rental income. So does it include the parking income, the other income? It's just the rental income.
Well, again, I see that as apartment income in column G, not gross potential income, which does have parking and that other stuff that you just mentioned, other and parking. Just want to be sure I'm clear. I mean, I don't want to guess it. Stuff.
No problem. So yes, sir. It is the apartment. The apartment income is at 9.2 number.
Okay, great. And the other thing is, I just want to make a comment. It would be helpful, given that for your client to separate out not only retail from the apartment income, all income, but also the committed affordable housing income, because the cap rate is higher. And so you're going to have an evaluation relatively lower instead of having the department figure this out and ferret it out. It ought to come directly from you. Just a comment and observation on my part.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Yates.
To the appellant, are you, I don't know, how in concurrence with what the county has done concerning capital improvements and dropping that from the expenses? And
No, sir. We have been going back and forth with the county on behalf of our client that all the expenses that we are accounting for are not capital expenditures. They are not one-time fees or one-time expenses. These are expenses that are allocated for the normal operation of the property and also to be competitive in the market as well. So we've been going back and forth, and we have been as transparent as possible whenever the county has asked us for any more detail about the expenses. And we always provide as much detail as we can. And I'm sorry.
can you give me an example of what you're saying are not capital expenses?
Well, I mean, just so there were some line items that that the county specifically highlights, and I can see if I can pull those up.
There's actually,
Often,
I'm sorry.
No,
There's
go ahead.
email communication included in the packet that itemizes those expenses.
yes, off the top of my head, I know it's usually E13 and E18 is usually the sections that are usually in question, and I'm having a hard time scrolling to find where those are specifically. Oh, okay, so they're on page. Looks like it's on page 69 of the county's package, and we have continued to provide any detail that the county has needed. And
All right.
All right, other questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Penderanda.
just one clarification to Ms. Shuttlesworth. The same question that pretty much you came up with. You mentioned a new number of 130,967,600 after taking a second look.
No, it was, sir, it was $130,987,500. That is the revised number, as
Okay, so
after
you
we
just
found.
misspoke. Could you give us that number? Okay,
um,
Thank you.
we're good.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Ms. Shuttleworth, if you take a minute to wrap up.
So again, we believe that our numbers presented in our pro forma are more than fair. We separated market units from the CAF units, and we separated the retail place. All those three components have different cap rates. All of them have different vacancies and concessions. We believe that the projecting decline, 7% decline in potential rent by the appellants is not appropriate. Judging by the past 2 years of financial information provided to us, the income has been increasing for the past 2 years. The EGI has been increasing for the past 2 years. We also addressed the excess vacancy for the retail portion. And I believe that the new revised assessment of $130,987,500 is fair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Price, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Yes, ma'am. So I believe that our analysis for this property is more than fair and appropriate. A 3-year average is appropriate, and we have even shown that the NOI that the county has of over $7.1 million has never been achievable at this property. The calendar year 2023 NOI was $6.1 million, and in our analysis, we're coming at $6.5 million. So we believe that the county's income and NOI is overstated, and our analysis is more than fair.
Okay, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. Mr. Love.
Yeah, Mark, that was a good question because the prior case, actually kind of wish we'd have heard it, but it looked like some of these things the county said aren't appropriate are appropriate. For example, painting the corridor and lobby. I mean, you're not gonna depreciate that. It's an expense. So, I mean, I don't really have a conclusion, but I'm just wondering if maybe the county is a little aggressive with what they're tossing as an appropriate expense.
But we never got any
Yeah, I
examples.
couldn't find
Yeah,
that breakdown.
I
That's
should
what
have followed up.
I know, but you didn't get the response to your direct
You didn't
question.
get specifics.
Yeah.
So, but I wonder if any of these things are being depreciated, because if it seems to me that if it's not depreciated, it's maintenance.
It's not a
You
capital-
agree?
by definition, it's not a capital
Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah,
I'm just making that observation, Madam Chairman.
And it seems to be every year, there's that gap between the county's opinion.
Yeah.
And it's like $1 million to $1.5 million. So it's significant.
and it's continual,
Yeah.
But the appellant hasn't told us what
but
it's
Yeah.
disallowed
I
either.
couldn't find the
Yeah.
answer.
It's kind of like the county's NOI is what the broker would put together if they put this property on for sale. And the other one is what their bookkeeper actually keeps.
Right, well, they've got the breakdown for the expenses, miscellaneous building expense, 21,000, exterior repairs, you see those? Pool vehicle expense,
But I can't tell if it's really capital improvement.
Right.
Yeah.
It's-
Big one.
That's the gap, that $1,352,000. It's, but it's listed as unit renovations, capital costs, construction work, and casualty loss, which would not be operating expenses on the surface.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless they dug into that and said, half of this is in the hallways or whatever.
So,
and without that. really Back to the.
Yeah,
county's
no one's given me a good argument that the county's incorrect.
Yeah.
I understand, they may very well be, but they've not proven it.
Yep. I mean, if you take the county's numbers, it's NOI at the bottom is like 769, 72,
Quite close.
75. Yeah, they're using 74, even though honestly, they probably cranked the rents again in 24. So going back to 7.4, lower than 2023, it supports a higher cap rate than what the county's even using, which kind of deflates the argument over cap rate as well. So I'm okay with it.
I find it an incredibly stabilized building and incredibly stabilized NOI and
All right, then I'm gonna move to accept the county's revised number of 130,987,500.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye, okay, it's unanimous. County's revised number of 130,987,500. Okay, so we still have this Shuttlesworth with Mr. Harmon. There we go. Mr. Price, if you can turn your camera. Thank you, sir. Last case on the agenda is RPC 1700807A, 1550 Clarendon Boulevard. Mr. Harmon, you can start with your name, please, and tell us about this property. Can you turn your microphone on, sir?
so
Stop the clock till we get this. Mr. Harmon?
yeah, this is great.
Can you hear us? We still cannot hear you. Turn it on. We had it early.
Do we have an ASL interpreter?
He
Scrolling.
never did talk.
All right, what about now? Can you hear me?
Oh, we can.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, hold on one second. We'll restart the clock. Okay, sir, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you. Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Annetta, good morning. This is the Cortland Arlington Apartments. It's at Clarendon and Pierce and Courthouse. Now to start, the county's revised assessment for this property represents a 15% increase from the 2023 assessment. That 2023 assessment was just over $61 million. In turn, the 2023 assessment was a 5.5% increase over the 2022 assessment. Over the past 2 years, nothing at the property has changed that would increase the value by this collective 17.5% increase that's occurred over the past couple of assessment cycles. This is a much greater year-over-year increase than any other apartment property that we've reviewed, especially in light of the state of this property as of the date of value. This property has been undergoing a major renovation that started at the end of 2023. The former owner operated this property as a short-term corporate housing and had not renovated the units since it was built in 1986. The assessment has imputed anticipated rental income post-renovation. We can see this on the county's test page on page 4 of the appeal. On this page, the property's 2023 gross potential income is shown on row 7 of column E. The initial assessment is in column D, where you can see that it used a GPI that is 22% higher than the 2023 gross potential income. That's reflective of the anticipated market rents post-renovation. The county's revision in column F continues this trend. It does lower the initial assessment's GPI, but it's still a 13% increase over the 2023 GPI. Our stabilized potential column in column H accepts the county's initial assessment GPI. What the issue on appeal is where are the costs required to increase the GPI accounted for on the assessment? After all, the county is assessing this property on the revised column with a 13% increase in GPI due to renovations that had only just begun as of January 1st. So where are the remaining costs required that the owner must incur in order to achieve these higher rents? These must be accounted for. In this instance, we actually have Virginia law that directly speaks to how we should handle this type of situation. In Arlington County v. Ginsburg, the Supreme Court of Virginia held everything which affects market value must be considered when assessing a property. including the expenditures and improvements necessary to allow the property to achieve its maximum potential. This case is included in the board book beginning on page 166. The Ginsburg case involved a property that needed major rehabilitation due to the property's poor condition in order to allow it to command market rents. This is the exact same fact pattern we have here today. A property that needs major renovations in order to achieve market rents. In Ginsburg, the court held that the appropriate way to assess that property was to impute market rents, as the assessment has done on this one, and then deduct the cost to get market rents, the cost of renovations, below the line, which the assessment has not done. You can see in column H, we applied the dictates of Ginsburg, the dictates of Virginia law, to the assessment for this property that must undergo extensive renovations to achieve market rents due to the poor condition of the property. Again, it had not been renovated since it was built in 1986. We adopted the county's initial assessment NOI that was derived from market rental rates that represent a 28% increase over 2023 GPI. We accepted the county's market vacancy rate and expenses, then applied a market cap rate. Finally, we deducted the remaining outstanding renovation costs that are necessary to allow the property to achieve those NOIs that have been assumed by the DREA. This is exactly, again, the fact pattern that the court considered in Ginsburg, and this is the application the court in that case ruled is appropriate. So this is the required methodology according to Virginia law. The cost of achieving the rents the county has imputed must be deducted from the assessment. As of the date of value, you can see there were $17.5 million in remaining renovation costs. The county's rents are reflective of future renovated units at the property. The owner's rent roll shows a total potential rent of only $4.8 million versus the revised assessment of $5.4 million, which works out to $2,450 per unit. This property is primarily one bedroom units also. It's 78% of units are one bedroom, one bathroom units. So the future rent has been considered and imputed by the assessment and by our stabilized column. Our stabilized column, by the way, imputed the initial assessment's rents. Those come in at over $2,800 per unit. But in order to get those rents, we have to consider the cost required to get them. That's what Ginsburg said. The county's write-up states that they've discounted the current asking rents for renovated units. However, that ignores the current concessions being offered for those renovated units. If you deduct current concessions from current asking rents for renovated units, you'll see that the county's revised GPI is well above the current rents, which means the revised assessment is using market rents post-renovation that are above what the property is actually currently experiencing. So by not applying the methodology outlined in Ginsburg of deducting the cost required to achieve the market rents the assessment has imputed, the assessment shows a total disregard for controlling evidence. As such, the presumption of validity has been overcome. The burden now shifts to the county to prove why the assessment is correct to not consider the cost required to achieve the market rents the assessment has imputed. Now, finally, this property did sell at the peak of the market in early 2022 as part of an 8-property portfolio sale. The buyer, as we've heard on prior cases, had an investment fund that needed to be spent within a certain time frame, certain criteria, and that explains the purchase price. So in summary, that the case is pretty straightforward. We're asking the board apply the dictates of Virginia law, as stated in the case of Arlington County versus Ginsburg, that the cost required to achieve market rents be deducted from the assessment. The assessment, again, shows a total disregard for the evidence of the required cost to achieve market rents. The assessment did impute market rents post-renovation, and as such, the presumption of correctness has been rebutted, and the burden shifts to the county to prove that the market rents imputed by the assessment are appropriate, but the required renovation costs should not be deducted. The renovations, again, are necessary in order to achieve market rents. This property has not been renovated since it was built in 1986. Vacancy at the property had been over 40% the past few years. So the renovations are necessary. The assessments imputed market rents. The remaining cost of renovations to achieve those market rents is required to be deducted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shuttlesworth for the county, please. Turn your microphone on, please.
Yes, this property was built in 1986 and it has the same effective age. We inspected this property with Mr. Jordan on June 7, 2024. The property was last purchased in June 2022 for $100 million for 100,000. The appellants are contesting potential rent, vacancies and collection and cap rate, and also the capital improvements. The renovated units feature high-end upgrades like made black-color appliances, quartzite countertops, modern cabinetry with designer hardware. I attached the photos. They are included on page 124 through 128 of the BOE packet. When complete, the amenities will include private resident bar, resort-style pool and sun deck, 24/7 fitness center, and concierge. We heard another Cortland, one of the other Cortland properties were brought to the board members, I believe, a few weeks ago. We had very similar situation. That property was also undergoing significant renovations, and they didn't have amenities as of January 1, 2024. When I met the property manager on site, he stated that the work will be finalized by September this year. The renovated one-bedroom units are currently being offered at starting price of $2,697 per month. Unfortunately, I was not able to obtain the information as to how many units, what was the estimated number of units completed as of January 1. That information was supposed to be forwarded to me. I have not received that information as of today. However, judging by the timeline of the construction and the ending day of the construction, which is set for September this year, I believe that as of January 1, significant number of those units have been already renovated and they have been collecting higher rents. The rent information we have received from the appellants represents the rents for the outdated units. So we believe that the potential rents we projecting in our column F are fair. Now, it's interesting that Mr. Jordan is contesting our potential rent of $5.404 million. They actually projecting much higher number than this. They projecting 28% increase, which is $6.227 million. We projecting only 11% increase. The appellants are deducting $17.5 million below the line for the capital expenses. We do not apply below the line adjustment for the capital expenses. These capital expenses incurred by add value to the property, which is reflected in the higher rents. In our column F, we decreased the potential rent and we increased parking fees. We also added RABs, which was not included in 2024 analysis. The monthly parking fees start at $150 per month. We applied $75 per parking space. Our proposed OPEX is $8,585 per unit. The appellants are projecting over $10,000 per unit. And another issue is, again, the rounding problem with our system. We corrected the cap rates from 5.63% to 5.633% to add Roseland bid rate of 0.078%. And that was added to our, so our metro cap rate, revised metro cap rate is 5.628%. And again, our cap rates are stated in ranges in our commercial guidebook, not as a single number. I know I'm repeating myself, but they are dependent on the type of the property, the proximity to the metro, and the effective age. Now, this revised proposed value I am stating on summary page, which is $70,121,400. This is just the interim value. I have not increased the effective age, even though significant number of those units have been updated, have been collecting higher rents as of January 1. But it will change before the end of this year. When the construction is over this September, we will revise that effective age, and consequently, the value will go up even higher. With that being said, open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you both. Question for Mr. Harmon. Do you know how many units were completed as of 1/1?
Yes, 7 units or 4% of the total was completed as of January 1st, with the remainder 96% outstanding.
Okay, so 7 units. And was there a problem with not being able to get that to the county?
So I believe Annetta asked me verbally during the inspection, and typically my response is please follow up with an email. I don't recall seeing the email. So that's probably where the miscommunication was she asked, I said, can you put it in an email so I remember? And then I don't recall seeing it.
All right, did you specifically ask him, Ms. Shuttlesworth? An email?
Yes, I did specifically ask him during the inspection, and Mr. Jordan, quote unquote, stated, I will follow up on this. He never said, please follow up with me.
Okay. Okay, all right, and so a question
And
for the
we-
county. It's a he said, she said.
Well, we did include some in the appeal as well. We included the outstanding costs because the renovations aren't just the units. It's the whole facade, it's the amenities as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Ms. Shuttlesworth, what's the county's position, your position on the Ginsburg case when there are extensive renovations needed to achieve the rents that we used?
So the main question I always ask when we visit those properties that are undergoing renovations, like this one, is either what is the estimated number of units completed as of January 1, or what is the percentage of completion as of January 1? And this is one of the 2 Cortland properties that have been undergoing renovations. And I asked the same question, and I did not receive the answer. The agent stated in both cases, I will follow up. So having had this information, when I conducted this review.
Stop you. Okay, so you're saying that you didn't have it, but now you do have it. So
Yes.
4% completed, 7 units. And so in light of what the Ginsburg ruling came out and said, that you do need to take that into consideration, what's your position on it now?
That will more than likely affect the value, since there are 4 units is not significant portion of the work being completed. This is a minimal number of units. We have total 184 units. So yes, that would have affected my proposed value.
Okay,
And
so
that would have affected my proposed potential rent.
okay, so since you're hearing this and we're about to do some math, it seems like you would want to make a recommendation of what the county's position would be right now.
Yes.
Or would you prefer the board to do that?
Well,
We have Mr. Hoffman, who's
I'm ready.
so yes, I will need probably a couple of minutes to figure out the potential rent now. When I look at my, I'll have to look again at the rent information. I cannot do it on the whim. These are millions of dollars involved.
that's what we have to do. So, okay, all right, we're gonna move on to,
Jordan, you at the end of your presentation made a statement that the property has been over 40% vacant for several years. Pick that up accurately?
Yes, that's correct. And to elaborate on that, this property, the former owner operated it as like a hybrid apartment hotel. It was like a short-term corporate stay. Several years ago, I had a friend come to town to do training for the State Department. So they put him up there for 6 months. So some of the units were furnished. They had like daily maid service. So it was a really eclectic type operation. So they're having to redo all that. But that was part of the reason for the high vacancy, is that it wasn't a traditional apartment building. It was a,
So,
Okay,
Great.
okay.
I think you ought to do the math.
you're gonna do the math on that. Any other questions?
I got a question. Yeah,
Okay,
just
go ahead.
because Jordan, normally if it's a major multi-million-dollar construction project and you're using you know, we're under construction and you're 28% complete by a certain date, normally you would submit the AIA kind of breakdown billing from December that would validate that. You know, Clark Construction, here's $100 million contract value, 28 million is done. You know, we've got a one-line email from the client. I'm gonna take it at face value that that's certified so that they're sworn to those numbers, but I don't really, you know, when he says it's $24.2 million project, I don't know if there's $20 million worth of furniture in that, right? So it's kind of hard to make a big below the line cut based on a one line, one number. And so where I'm gonna get into discussion, I just wanted to get your opinion on this, is, you know, if this board thinks that the 2023 number was fair at 61,083,000, and your client has certified that they put in 6.7 million through Jan 1 into that building, and we took the 23 and increased it by 6.7, that comes to roughly $67,800,000 in value. That's if this board deems the 23 was a fair value. So if I go that route, is that something that you're amenable to?
no, so a couple of items. So I don't believe furniture is going to make up much of any
Forget
of
furniture.
that cost.
Forget furniture. I'm
Um,
taking your
the-
numbers at face value that these are hard costs.
So the remaining costs are 17.5 million. That's for facade, amenities, unit renovations, but also the 2020. So after this property sold in 2022, the subsequent assessments, both 23 and 24, have aggressively risen. I think it's partially, trying to get closer to that sale price, but
So, I mean, would your position be that in 23 it was overassessed then?
So we didn't review this property for 23, but I mean, I would assume based on the increases that we saw, and really there's no data to support those increases with the vacancy being where it is and
Okay.
the necessary repairs.
All right, thank you.
Let's not go by this.
Okay.
I have a question for the appellant. That was extremely useful information that we got, that a minimal amount of apartments have been renovated and certainly not the full amount of the planned capital expenditures have been expended as of 1/1/24. So my question is, on column H, you have a significant rental income number relative to column E. It results from 2023 with a minimal amount of upgraded apartments and therefore rents. Is that number much higher because you have nothing in RUBS in column H, or if not? So two-part question is, where are the RUBS number? And second, why is the income in both in column H so high relative to everything else?
So column H, we adopted all of the county's assumptions on their initial assessment. They imputed rent at 6.2 million. We said, hey, post renovation, that's probably fair. So what we did was we used the Ginsburg approach, which is you impute future market rents, but you deduct the cost to get to those rents. So with the presumption of validity that's attached to the initial assessment, we said, okay, let's not even argue their income numbers. Let's not argue their expense numbers. The
Okay,
only argument is
So
the
it's all
cost to get
potential
to
rent and all potential expenditures.
Okay.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah, we just tried to simplify it.
I have a quick one, just,
That's all right.
and then
Hoffman.
on hand, just, do you have the rentable square footage of the building?
Of the building.
Yeah, like leasable area. I can guess at it.
No, I do not.
By unit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because they're doing it by
I
unit.
can,
Which is
Okay.
normal.
All right, well, you have the gross square footage of the building?
I can look it up.
Doing a cost approach, I think.
I'm looking, but my screen is so small, I just want to make sure I get it. It's usually in here. Apartment area 179,758. I just don't know if that's gross or net when it says apartment area.
So it's total of all the apartments versus the common area.
Okay,
Okay, that's fine.
all right, Ms. Shuttlesworth, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yes, so again, I have not had information as to how many units have been completed as of January 1. I was advised by the property manager that the construction work started last year. The permits were pulled during the second half of 2022, I'm sorry. And the construction was supposed to be finalized in September this year. Therefore, I could only do my best judgment at the time of this review, and I came up with $5.404 million, which was still below the projections by the appellant in column H. I acknowledge that the market conditions have changed since 2022. However, the sales price was over $100 million. Our proposed value is $30 million below that. And with that being said, I'm not able to come up with the numbers again at this very second. If the board will give me a couple of minutes, I can probably figure it out. If not, I just have no other choice but leave it up to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harmon, if you take a minute to wrap up.
Yes, thank you. So this property, again, requires extensive renovations in order to bring it up to market quality. This is the exact fact pattern that the Supreme Court of Virginia addressed in Arlington County versus Ginsburg. In that case, the court ruled that you must, if you're going to impute market rents, you must deduct the cost to get those market rents. That's exactly what we proposed on our pro forma column. We accepted the county's income approach on future rents, future expenses, post renovation, but then we deducted the remaining outstanding cost to achieve those. Just when we did tour this was a massive construction zone. You know, the whole front was fenced off. It's jackhammers going. I'm surprised they didn't ask us to wear hard hats to go through the lobby. But with that, the current tenants, they're offering 3 months free rent. They've got co-working space for them in Roslyn for them to go and work from home from there. So it's really an extensive undertaking. And if we're going to assume post renovation income, we must deduct the cost to get there. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. I just will say, I mean, in the county's final comments, there are 2 things to note with. One, to say, oh, that the appellant, we revised it and we did it lower than what the appellant is arguing. Appellant already said that he took the original assessment, so it's not that he was arguing that. And then second, I did ask Ms. Shuttlesworth to come up with a number because that's what we're here to do. And I believe her comment was, I can't do it on a whim. And then in the wrap up said, oh, if you give me a few minutes, I could have done it. So I said, do you want to do this before we do it? Is that what you have to do? If you want to call it on a whim.
I can do it 3 days.
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Hoffman,
All right.
let's hear what you got.
I wanted to do a back check because the county was gonna make a case, we should have made a case that they've underestimated the rents at completion, which they have, right? If I can run this.
Yes.
Right, and I gotta guess at what the core factor is,
Right.
but it's like, if it's 80%, these are $3.13 rents in courthouse. That's a market that's above 4. Right? So they've underestimated the apartment income at completion. So their GPI should be much higher.
You're talking on the test.
The county on the TET, and then they should put the below the line deduction in there. So, they didn't do that. So we're doing it ourselves. But, taking it at face value that this property sold in 22 for 100 million. Okay. It wasn't appealed in 23. We've got a value at 61 million in 23. The appellant certified that they've spent 6.7 million in capital costs and improvements. And so if you took that 61 million and you added 6.7, it's 67,800. So that's a $3 million reduction. And it kind of fits the whole Ginsburg test. we don't have to get into the income this year because it's pretty speculative at this point. And I think Jordan should be happy with it. It's a reduction.
So the presumption is that the 23 evaluation was spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably low, to be honest,
Yeah.
but given that they paid 100 million for it,
Well, we know that
yeah.
And so what was
I-
the number that you added to it?
So if you take the owner's email that says the project value is 24.2, there's 17.5 left to complete after January 1. That means you've got 6.7 million that has been completed, right? So I added the 6.7 million to the 2023 assessment.
What's it, number 60?
67, 783, 300.
Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, Greg, I don't quite agree with what you did. What I did is I capped out the operating year. That's at like 21 million. And I did this yesterday, but I tinkered with upping the vacancy. Because I don't know if that 17.5 is the way we should do it, because I don't think you had to spend the money. I think it was a choice. So I'm not 100% sure that it's a Ginsburg type of a situation. And after tinkering around, I just thought we ought to just go with what it was last year.
Mr. Penrose?
That's pretty much what I was also thinking, because we're coming up with only 7 units being renovated as testified. From 2022, when they got the permit, a little hard to believe that just only 7 units were renovated possible. But the 2023 assessment was using the rental that would see. There was nothing contested on that, so
there was nothing
nothing contested on that.
contested.
So I think, based on so many numbers that are not really clear, I think going with 2023 at this point would be okay. I mean, your assessment would be, I think, valid.
I think you're right next year.
You guys are lower, and the truth is, probably most of that 6.7 was soft costs, right? Because they only renovated 3 units. So I would give them the benefit of the doubt that,
Soft costs get spent first.
yeah, that, the architect. And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
If the project doesn't get done,
Permitting.
those get thrown in
The
the
legal
trash.
fees.
The legal fees.
Let's not forget the
All the
legal
permit fees too. So I mean, I can get behind that. Logically, it makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think we've got a consensus.
Why don't I make a motion, Madam Chairman, that we reduce the assessed value to a figure of 61,083,300. And the reason for my motion is that there's no way we can analyze construction costs and all of that. And it just seems like the building is in the same state as it was last year.
Okay, we got a motion. Brockman is the second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The assessment is reduced back to the 2023 assessment of 51,083,300. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, that completes the
Thank
agenda.
Chris,
Does anybody have any?
is my recollection.
Oh, yeah.
Record?
This is kind
No?
of.
Okay, then we will stand adjourned. Sorry, hold on, folks. At 9:53, reconvene next Tuesday, September 3rd, virtually for the members who can attend. That's it. Thank you.